Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
What's going on, everyone? We're going to talk some football. That's right, you heard me. We are going to talk some football, not just the Philadelphia Eagles. We will look around the league as well, because what I have planned today for discussion is Pro Football Focus's top 50 players entering next season. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm normally not the biggest Pro Football Focus fan in the world. Sometimes they put out lists or rankings or they rate teams, and I question, how did they come up with that? What type of analytics told them that's the list? But overall, I think this is a fun little how do you do. The problem is, it's so hard to rank the entire league. This isn't by position. And we all understand that the quarterback position is way more valuable than any other position on the field. So I think it's interesting to look at how they approach this list. So I'm just going to read to you, by the way, the description in the beginning of this article, just so you can properly understand how they valued these positions and how they approached the entire list. We at Pro Football Focus have assembled a list of the NFL's 50 best players as we longingly look ahead to the 2020 NFL season. The Pro Football Focus 50 is a product of evaluating every player on every play of each NFL season to produce Pro Football Focus's unrivaled database of stats, grades, and information. This list is not about how valuable players are, but rather about how good they are, regardless of position. A guard, cornerback, receiver, or even a running back has just as good of a chance to appear on this list as the quarterback does. We started from the standpoint of a multi-year look at their grading before making adjustments based on the situation, relevant injuries, and new circumstances that could change a player's future outlook. Sample size was factored in as well as any suggestion of decline from players reaching the later stages of their careers. The latter stages of their careers. Sometimes these eyeballs do whatever. So that's how they got all of this information. And I just think that, they came up with a unique list. We will start with the 3 Philadelphia Eagles that made the list. That's right, we have 3. And that's super exciting. But before we do not forget that this episode of Sports Talk with Broads is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power, and they set the standard for clean energy. We are talking $0 electric bills when going solar with Orbit. Not only that, there's been a ton of storms lately. Backup energy services. You do not want to get caught without any power. New roof, water purification systems, backup energy services, as I stated, battery storage, you name it. Orbit Energy and Power will work with you to ensure you are getting the best deal. Make sure you check out their website at orbitenergy.us or give them a call at 800-836-3987. Their information is in the description. So as I stated, we will start with the Eagles players first. And at number 15 on the list, I printed out the entire list here, so we have a lot of papers flying around today. It is what it is. Number 15 on the list is Fletcher Cox. He is the second defensive interior lineman on the list. And yes, Aaron Donald is number 1. Shocker. He's actually number 1 overall, not just number 1 at that position. And that should not really shock anyone, of course. He is an absolute stud. He changes the entire game. I mean, going into the weeks against the Rams, I could only imagine how much the opposing squad and the opposing head coach and the opposing offensive line coach and offensive coordinator all sit around and go, how are we going to stop this guy? What are we going to do to stop Aaron Donald, right? I could only imagine the type of sleep that they lose knowing that he is on the schedule next. Not only next, he's a dude that you think about now. When you see the schedule release, you know that, oh my, Aaron Donald is out there, and he's going to be coming up against my linemen. But anyway, getting to the Fletcher Cox point of this, Fletcher Cox, the second interior defensive lineman on the list. Now, let me read to you what they put for his description here. Fletcher Cox is the best power pass rusher in the NFL. His ability to overwhelm physical dominant offensive linemen is unique, and it has led him to some truly spectacular seasons. Over the past 3 seasons, Cox has 202 total pressures, the second most in the league among interior pass rushers, and the 6th most in the league among all players. He is a wrecking machine inside the Eagles. I just sense that he doesn't get the recognition nationally. We love him here in Philly. We love his personality. We love his leadership. We love what he brings to the table. We obviously love his play when he's rocking and rolling. He is truly sensational. But it doesn't feel that way. We hear defensive tackles like Aaron Donald get talked about all the time. I never, ever hear Fletcher Cox like that. You hear about J.J. Watt. You hear about Von Miller. And I understand they're not defensive tackles. But when you talk about pass rushers and players who play on the D-line, I don't hear Fletcher Cox being discussed like that. Sure, if you're listening to a Sunday night football game and Chris Collinsworth is on the call with Al Michaels and Fletcher Cox has a sack, are they going to pump his tires? Are they going to discuss how many times he has beaten a specific lineman in his career, or how many sacks he has, or how teams have to double team him? Obviously. But I'm just talking overall nationally. He does not get the praise of falling number 2 at that position on this list and 15th overall. Now, the way that they described their list, they are looking at current situations. And when you look at what the Eagles did, they're getting a healthy Malik Jackson, which is huge, which is going to help Fletcher Cox, and Hargrave. Now, my big thing is, I don't see other teams going with this philosophy. Well, let's not double team Fletch. Let's double team Hargrave. Or let's not double team Fletch. Let's double team Malik Jackson. I don't sense that happening. So now Fletcher Cox at 29 years old, who will be 30, by the way, December of this year, he's going to have to beat these double teams. And it's something that he has been experiencing his whole entire career. I don't think he's going to just all of a sudden forget how to do it, but it will be tougher as he gets older. And I'm just curious how much more he has left in the tank. I think that there's still some left in the tank, don't get me wrong. But you hit 30, it's a different feel. You've been going up, as I stated, against double teams your entire career. You were in a boot at one point. I'm pretty sure he was on a scooter as well. And listen, everyone around the NFL gets banged up, and in the offseason they have some sort of recovery to get their body going. So I'm not acting as if it's impossible or he's the only player that had to deal with something like that throughout his career. But I just wonder how much is left in the tank because, you saw him hit a wall, but last year there wasn't really anybody to help him out. You had no one to release any sort of pressure. And I mentioned how maybe some teams won't move away from him. But what if Hargrave has 2 sacks in a game? Or what if Malik Jackson is on fire and he's got a couple sacks in a game? You would think at some point maybe the other team does make an adjustment. All right, we got to stop Jackson because if we don't, he's going to get another one, or he's going to find a way to at least get past our line once again. What do? Well, maybe you help that side and that frees up Fletcher Cox. I just feel if everyone stays healthy, and that's a big if, of course, because we are talking about the sport of football, but if this line stays healthy at the defensive tackle position, he has enough help where there might be some stress pushed off of him a bit, which will be able to allow him to elevate his game a tad. Last year, there was a wall hit. He had to play so many snaps. Maybe, just maybe, they go with a philosophy at times where you work that rotation of the 3 and Hassan Ridgeway, and that allows him to stay fresher. It gives him the ability to maybe not have to play so many snaps, so as the season continues, he has more to give later on in the year. Now look, he's their best player on defense. You're not going to take your best player off that much, but I think you can utilize the other defensive tackles, which if you do it the right way, maybe you will get more out of Fletcher later on in the year. Weeks 13, week 14, week 15. And you play the long game with him. Because now you have players that will able to hold the fort down. You're no longer picking up defensive tackles off the street and hoping they do good enough. Now, to be fair, the players they did pick up last year at that position, it wasn't as much of a dumpster fire as it could have been, but you can't rely on that. That can't happen. You need X factors up with Fletcher Cox to only help his game. And this year, so far, from the start, they are going to have that, and I'm super intrigued to see what they are going to be able to bring to the table and what Fletcher Cox is going to be able to do. I just wonder, and I don't want this to sound negative, because it's not negative, because I think Fletcher Cox is going to have a good season. He is going to help this football team. He is going to be a leader. You lose Malcolm Jenkins. Someone's going to have to step up on that defensive side. I think Darius Slay is going to step up. I think Fletcher Cox is going to step up. I think Brandon Graham is going to step up. But his leadership role might take an even bigger step than it did last year, and I can't wait to see that happen. But I just wonder how much he is going to be able to bring once you hit the age of 30. Things eventually do start going the other way. We'll see, though. I'm a huge Fletcher Cox fan. I'm a big supporter. Got the jersey, the black one. It's actually my go-to on the Sundays. I'm normally not this huge jersey guy. I went through a phase, but that Fletcher Cox one, because it was my first one, there's something about it. Emotionally, it's like, all right, it's the Eagles. Let me put on that one. I got a Wentz jersey. I got a Ertz jersey. That Fletcher Cox one, though, it hits different. He's a mean dude. At some point, though, the trajectory, it stops going up for someone. And when you hit 30, you might hit a plateau. The positive, a plateau of what Fletcher Cox gives you, yeah, it's still good. Eventually, he'll hit his back 9, though. Remember, there's 18 holes. If he's on hole 10, hole 11, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Maybe he's on hole 11. I think that's fair to say. Hole 11? There's still plenty. When is it going to come, though? Because sometimes it just hits. And I hope it's not anytime soon. Maybe there's a couple slow people playing, right? If we're going to use the golf comparison still. You got some slow guys walking, and you cut in front of them, and before you know it, you could be on hole 17. Let's hope that doesn't happen. All right, we'll move on to the second player, who is let's look here at this list as we move all of these papers. 34. You ready for this? Brandon Brooks, right guard. Let's read the description. Just a season ago, in his first year back from a torn Achilles, Brandon Brooks won Pro Football Focus's Bruce Matthews Award, which is given to the best single offensive lineman in football. It was a career year for a player who has always been quietly one of the best offensive linemen in the league. He has never had a season that graded lower than average, and he has now surrendered just 4 sacks in 4 seasons. Last year, he had 8 games in which he surrendered no pressures at all. And if anything, he was a better run blocker than he was a pass protector. Insane. I will say, the offensive line scares me. I hate to have negative looks on things, right? Well, I look at Fletcher Cox, and I say, oh, at some point he's going to hit a back 9. And when I think of Brandon, my question, what if he gets hurt again? What if? What if he gets hurt again? Now what do? When you look at this offensive line, they're getting older. You're still debating if Jason Peters is going to come back or if it's going to be Andre Dillard. Of course, it seems like it's moving in the Andre Dillard way, but it's still there. The door's still open. This team never shut the door. The offensive line is a good offensive line. Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Seumalo, and Andre Dillard at this point. It's a good offensive line. It's an offensive line that can win you football games. The Eagles build in the trenches, and that's a great philosophy. That's a winning philosophy, so it's super exciting. With Brandon Graham, though, he is getting up in age. He did sign that deal too, by the way, which is a hefty payday. You're supposed to do that when you have linemen like that, for sure. But we talk about Carson Wentz all the time getting injured. What about Brandon Brooks? The stats I read to you, though, it's pretty remarkable. 4 sacks in 4 seasons. 8 games in which he surrendered no pressures at all last year. It's wild. When he's healthy, he's elite. Will he be able to stay healthy? Will he be able to compete at a high level and stay on the football field? Remember, the Eagles do not have Vitae anymore. That was someone, I can't believe I'm saying this, that was someone you could rely on to be able to step in as a swing tackle, as a guard. I mean, you name it. He can move in there and he would be able to handle it. Do you still have that player? Is it Matt Pryor? Is that the guy you go to? And if it is, can you truly rely on this guy to do it? See, now it's such a bigger deal. Now that Vitae is not here, that is a problem. You had someone with experience who won a Super Bowl at the left tackle position, and it wasn't pretty all the time. But when Vitae knew that he was going to be playing that week, he was good. He was damn good. The problem was when he got thrown in halfway through a game. That's where it got sloppy, and that's where his mental preparation was different, obviously. Because when he was able to prepare, when he was able to go through the weeks consistently, knowing I'm playing on Sunday, I'm playing on Sunday, I'm playing on Sunday, he was a different type of animal. Not having Vitae, though, it makes this Brandon Brooks concept different. Now, Matt Pryor stepped in, and I thought he did a good job during that playoff game. Hopefully that's something to build on. Hopefully he is someone that eventually he gets the trust of the coaching staff. He gets the trust of the city, and more importantly, his teammates. So his teammates know. I've seen Brandon Brooks now a couple years in a row not be able to finish the year. And if we are going to be brutal when it comes to Carson Wentz, if we are going to be brutal against Deshaun Jackson, if we are going to keep that same energy with a lot of the other players, well, then I think for Brandon Brooks, you got to bring up that conversation as well. But if he is healthy, he can be dominant. He can change the game. And when you're playing next to Lane Johnson and Jason Kelce, yeah, you have some comfort. And that's a stellar right side of an offensive line. Pro Football Focus obviously sees Brandon Brooks as someone who can destroy opponents, who can stop other defensive pass rushers with his eyes closed. He could probably do it with his eyes closed. And his story, whew, come on now, crazy. The fact that he is where he is, battling the anxiety, it's remarkable. I'm rooting for him. Just hopefully he's able to stay on the field. Number 3 for the Eagles at 49, Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham has been one of the best edge rushers of the entire decade, but at 32, we may have seen the last of his best years. Last season, his overall Pro Football Focus grade slipped below 85 for the first time since 2015, and he posted the lowest pass rushing grade of his career since he became a full-time starter. 67 total pressures is still an impressive number, but the decisive wins weren't there as often as they have been in previous seasons. Even a declining Brandon Graham is still a problem for an offense, and that's how he makes the list. So they're saying Brandon Graham is on the downfall, and he's still coming in at number 49. Now, he's at age 32. We talked about Fletcher turning 30. So just put that in comparison. Brandon Graham was never a big sack guy. It took him a couple years to get going, as we all remember. But he does provide a ton, leadership-wise. He does provide a ton when it comes to rushing the quarterback, making the quarterback hurry around, scramble. He's electric when it comes to that. And he made the biggest play in Eagles history. Ew, let's go. What a time, right? I remember when he swiped down Tom Brady. The ball hit the ground. There goes Derek Barnett. He recovers. Let's go. I was screaming, going crazy on my couch. Brandon Graham might have a little left. I don't know how long he can keep it up. Now, last year, he impressed everybody. I would say that if you told people he was going to have the type of year that he had prior to the season starting, you might go, yeah, it sounds great, but I don't know how true that is. And I am entering the same year with the same philosophy. Last year was awesome. I don't know if I'm going to expect the same thing out of him. Now, I hope he proves me wrong. I hate to have negative views on these players, but reality is what I'm saying. Fletcher is getting older. Brandon Brooks has been injured a ton, and he's getting up there in age. Brandon Graham, 32 years old. It's no joke. The thing is, though, while I do question some of them, when they are able to play, they can really play, and they can change the outcome of games. Will they prove that they deserve to be on this list? And I really am interested to see. Now, there's a few Eagles that did not make the list that I thought maybe would. No Zach Ertz. The only other tight ends on this list is Kittle and Kelsey. So it's not as if I feel he was disrespected by any means. But I will say, Kittle made the list pretty high at number 5. I'll read you the top 10 here. Aaron Donald, number 1. Pat Mahomes, number 2. Julio Jones at 3. And I just feel that is way too high for Julio Jones. I'm sorry. I'm not questioning if he's good or not. He's obviously good, but there's plenty of other people that I think deserve to be higher than Julio Jones when we are talking about the best players next year, right? The best players in football all of next year, and Julio Jones is number 3. I just think that is absolutely ridiculous. Quentin Nelson from the Colts, a lot of linemen. It was heavy on defensive linemen, offensive linemen, and what else was pretty heavy? Quarterbacks, of course, 6 quarterbacks, but it was pretty high on the defensive side of the ball, which was pretty interesting. Michael Thomas at number 6, Russell Wilson at 7, Lamar Jackson at 8, DeAndre Hopkins at number 9, playing with Kyler Murray in Arizona, and number 10, Christian McCaffrey. So that's your top 10. What about Miles Sanders? Only 2 running backs? Chubb and McCaffrey. No Zeke? Huh. No Saquon Barkley? Huh. And it kind of just shows you how the league values the running back position. Dalvin Cook right now, that's a hot topic in the football world. Dalvin Cook wants to get paid. He wants the extension. The Minnesota Vikings not really budging at the moment. And this is something that I asked Andrew DeCecco from Inside the Birds on 97.3 ESPN today during Football at 4. You see what's going on. If Miles Sanders continues to move forward as the stud that we expect him to be, do you see the Eagles running into a very similar situation? And he said that, well, if you think about the Eagles, they haven't really had this type of back in so long. And when you have this type of back in Miles Sanders, remembering that we are expecting him to turn into this crazy elite player, if you have that, you don't let him walk. But you look at the payday that Christian McCaffrey got, and you think about the Eagles and the cap and how they do it. Putting that much money in the running back position, it's just crazy. But this shows how much the league values that position. When Christian McCaffrey and Nick Chubb are your only 2 running backs on the list. No Carson Wentz. Your quarterbacks who made the list, Mahomes at 2, Wilson at 7, Lamar Jackson at 8, Drew Brees at 11, Tom Brady at 24, and Deshaun Watson at 43. So no Carson Wentz, but no Aaron Rodgers, no Dak Prescott, no Jared Goff, no Jimmy Garoppolo, no Matt Ryan. Just names I'm spitballing. But that's interesting to not see Aaron Rodgers on the list. So they don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a factor. Now, why is that? Because he's a little ticked off that they drafted a quarterback? Maybe that's the same way they looked at Carson Wentz. I highly doubt that, of course. Aaron Rodgers got their team to the playoffs last year. They got themselves pretty far. Now, it ended ugly. But, top 50? You don't think that he fits the top 50 narrative? That's a little shocking to me. When it comes to wide receivers, I was thinking, all right, will anyone make it? Deshaun, probably not. Alshon's banged up, and he's not that type of player. It obviously won't be Jalen Reagor, won't be J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I don't see the Eagles really having a wide receiver that can make the list. But who did? Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, as I mentioned, Hopkins, as I mentioned, Michael Thomas, as I mentioned, Mike Evans, and Godwin made it. And, of course, that is having the tie of Tom Brady being their quarterback. So, yeah, I would assume that they would be able to make some noise as well. I feel like their numbers are going to be absolutely crazy. So, I could see them being able to jump into the list. Godwin's a fun watch, I'll tell you what. Tampa Bay is going to be an interesting watch. No doubt about it. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth. See, the Tom Brady thing is funny. Now that he left New England, do people who hated the Patriots now root for Tom Brady elsewhere? Oh, I would love to see history, man. I would love to see Tom Brady stick it to the Patriots. Do people who hate Tom Brady and the Patriots now root for him to succeed? I've always been a Tom Brady guy. Believe it or not, I love watching him win. And even when he was on the Patriots, when the Eagles were not involved, of course, I wanted him to win in the Super Bowl. I wanted him to win more Super Bowls. I want to see greatness. I want to be able to look back and say, I watched Tom Brady. I watched his entire career. I watched him win all those Super Bowls, and it was special. So I'm rooting for the dude. Keep in mind, of course, this all is situational. Are the Eagles in play? Are they not in play? I wouldn't want Tom Brady to win over Carson Wentz and the Eagles. Let's not be silly. But looking at some other players that I thought just were, it's like, wow, all right, let's see how they do. Richard Sherman at 14 with the 49ers. Age is big for me. Breaking down is big for me. Will he break down at some point? Well, they don't expect him to break down at this point. Here's the description for him. Only age keeps Richard Sherman this low. The best cornerback of the past decade will enter the season at 32 years old, coming off one of the best seasons of his career. Sherman was a huge reason for the 49ers were so successful last year and showed that he could get back to his best play another year removed from his Achilles injury. He allowed a passer rating of just 45.3 when targeted, including the playoffs. And that was the first season of his career since 2014 where that figure dropped below 50. Sherman has always been criticized for being just a zone corner, but he has been so much more than that. Richard Sherman. At some point, it's not going to be that way anymore. They're projecting not this year, though. J.J. Watt at 13. The thing with J.J. Watt, it's so crazy to me. And it just shows you, obviously, how much of a team sport it is. But he's so dominant. He's one of the best to ever do it. He's a physical beast. But he doesn't move the needle for me. If you're talking about just skill level, yeah. But when it comes to the Texans, I don't know. Is it the injury history? I don't know. But for some reason, I can't explain it to you. When it comes to J.J. Watt, I just don't sense that. And it might have to do with where the Texans have been since he's been there. They made the playoffs, sure. They can win that division, sure. But it hasn't been enough. It hasn't been the oomph for me. I don't know. Bobby Wagner at 17. Do you still see it in Bobby Wagner? You remember the Seahawks teams that were going to the Super Bowl all the time? Yeah, he was a beast. Bobby Wagner at 17. Like I said, sometimes some of these numbers that they use, the analytics that they use, it could be a little wonky. But, just rolling through here. Tyriq Hill at 22. Von Miller at 25. Is Von Miller what he once was? I would argue no. Nick Chubb at 27 is a little crazy to me. I'm not going to lie. I mentioned there were only 2 running backs on the list. How about Derrick Henry? You're just going to write him off after the season he had last year with the Tennessee Titans? Do you think teams figure him out? How about Lamar Jackson at number 8? speaking of figuring people out, I always bring this up when the Lamar Jackson debate is brought up. I love Lamar. Rooting for him to succeed. I want him to prove everybody wrong when it comes to the quarterback position. I love the fact that he stepped up and I'm not playing wide receiver. I'm not playing other positions. I'm a quarterback. I love it. Now with more film, though, will it be easier? Now it's hard to stop that type of talent, that speed, right? Come on. It's unreal. But at some point, film catches up. And I wonder if film will help other coaches be able to come up with a philosophy to stop him. And you saw him have an ugly game last year in the playoffs. Is there enough on that game to now have a game plan? Like Ben Simmons and the Celtics. When Brad Stevens outcoached Brett Brown the first year they made the playoffs, and Ben Simmons could not do a damn thing in the half court, teams just watched that series. Watch what Brad Stevens do. And now everyone knows how to stop it. To an extent, did people find a way to stop Lamar? The only thing that can happen from here, which is on Lamar, is for him to be able to add to his game. Will he be able to throw the football better? Will he be able to add to his game where, okay, if people force me to throw, fine, I will. And you know what? I'll drop dimes, and I'll make it work. And then you have to change your whole entire philosophy. Is that next for Lamar Jackson? I'm not going to lie to you, though. I'm getting pretty stoked about football. I think that there will be fans in the stands, which is definitely very awesome to think about. I think they're just going to roll through and have the season like normal. Now you have a little bit of a funky situation with the camps and whatnot, but things are starting to open up. You saw Carson Wentz with Jalen Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, that he's starting to go out there and throw the football with some of his receivers. Goodwin was also there, so he's able to kind of get in some rhythm and just learn certain things and have those receivers, Reagor, who is a rookie, kind of learn his breaks and get synced up together. That was totally an awesome thing to see going around Twitter and whatnot. So you're starting to get that vibe that things are moving forward, and football will probably have some sort of camp at some point this summer, which needs to happen. It has to get teams on the same page. So only time will tell. You just have baseball at this point going back and forth, which is a complete embarrassment. You're waiting for the NBA to take the next step, although you see their proposal that has been accepted, and that's going to be a fun watch. Hockey, same thing, kind of waiting. So with the NFL, for some reason, even though other things are coming back and you're going to see their playoffs, the NFL has me wired right now. Don't ask me why. It shouldn't. And maybe when the games come on, when I see the Sixers and when I see the Flyers, things will change. But at this very moment, I'm thinking about football way too much. There's so much more to happen in the sports world before football comes back. Why is this happening? It's something new every day. My brain is all over the place thinking about this sport, that sport, here and there, and this and that, and what and who and huh. I can't control this damn brain. What are you going to do, though? Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, this episode of Sports Talk with Broads is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power, and they set the standard for clean energy. We are talking $0 electric bills. $0 electric bills. No risk, no investment. Their phone number, 800-836-3987. Also, their website, orbitenergy.us. Information is in the description. Thank you guys so much. Comment down below. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you know where the comment section is. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or any podcasting platform, you can use the review system as a comment section. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.